Hi, and welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary on Nantucket. If you haven't seen the show before, my name is Art Bergeron. I'm an attorney with a firm called Myrick O'Connell. There are 70 of us. And because there are so many of us, we each get to do what we like. I like elder law. So this was originally a show that was going to supplement my programs that I do at the Salt Marsh, but I realized these are never about law. They're always about Frank and Mary on Nantucket. Frank and Mary, whose goal in life is to live in their house until they die and be buried in the backyard. And if they're on Nantucket, that means they want to stay here, even if they can't be in the house. But they definitely want to stay here, which means as you get older, you want to know about the programs that can kind of help you do that. And so when I started doing these shows regularly, I needed someone who knew everybody. And so my good friend Allison Forsgren got sucked into doing this with me, and she's been terrific. And inevitably finds great people to have come on the show and talk to us. So who do you have today?
Well, thank you, Arthur. Today we have Mark
Budaj.
Oh, I was gonna
Stop.
catch you like, no, that's
Today
good,
we have
that's
Mark
good.
Budaj from Elder Services of Cape Cod and the Islands. Can you tell us what you do?
Sure, I'm the nutrition coordinator. So basically, I run the local Meals on Wheels program and the Congregate Lunch that we serve at Salt Marsh.
That's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff, but I've got a lot of support, and we are fortunate to be blessed with about 24 volunteers who actually are the lifeblood of the program. They are the ones responsible for distributing all of the home-delivered meals, and they also work with us down at the Salt Marsh, serving the seniors, clearing, setting up tables and such like that. Couldn't do it without volunteers.
And one of the amazing things of this program, as I was mentioned before we talked, this is actually the original, Meals on Wheels, the original Older Americans Act program from the 1960s. This was an LBJ program. Whenever you talk to people about senior centers, blah, 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 it's always really about Meals on Wheels. And so he's really they're doing something that's just been, it was like a turning point for dealing with seniors. It's like this, but now I'm curious once again, I'm not a local, you're a local. How did you get here?
How did I get here? I'm a wash ashore.
You are?
Yes,
you are.
I came here as a college student and enjoyed Nantucket and got in the hospitality business. Then I worked for Federal Express, so I've combined delivering and feeding people into this situation.
Yep.
But
yep.
yeah,
and how long you been doing this stuff?
15 years.
Wow.
15 years.
Like
Congratulations.
a long time.
It works. I'm in a comfortable position. I enjoy getting up and going to work. The only part of my job I don't like is the turnover. It's hard to get close to people and then have them leave you.
Oh, of course, because
Yeah.
people are kind of coming in. People are coming and going,
Yep.
right?
But the program's been around for 42 years on Nantucket. In 1977, Dr. James Peace, through the Older Americans Act that you mentioned, got home-delivered meals started as part of the Elder Services of Cape Cod and the Islands nutrition programs.
And so you mentioned people come and go, but are there? You talked about Are there many volunteers that have been with you like for a long time? 'Cause you've been
Yes.
here for quite a while.
Yep. I've been very blessed to have many people who have started before I did and are still going strong. We did lose 3 ladies in their 80s last summer who were our core of the volunteers downtown.
Yeah.
And people don't exactly fill in the spaces as quickly.
Yeah.
We deliver about 175 meals, home-delivered meals a week. And so there's quite a bit of opportunity for people to pitch in and help out. And it's a perfect program to help people stay in their homes. It's a nutritious, well-balanced meal that's very easy to prepare. And it's also a set of eyes checking in on somebody every day, a daily safety check.
So I was just gonna comment on that point about the second set of eyes, because we always think of Meals on Wheels is that it does keep people home.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember getting a call, different community in Southborough. I got a call from a lady who had some issues. She had said, and her kids were taking care of her finances, but she wasn't sure they were doing a good job, and blah blah blah. And could I stop by her house? And so I did, because it was the next town over from my office. And as I was walking into the house, the Meals on Wheels lady was walking out because she had just dropped off the meal, right? And I went and talked to the lady, and the lady actually did have some memory problems. And it was clear that she was having, and that was one of the reasons she was concerned about her daughter that was taking care of things. So I get back to the office. That afternoon, I get a call from the local police, because the person from Meals on Wheels had said, this is real. I saw this stranger going into this woman's house, and I had never seen him before because she regularly, and I don't know who that guy was, right? And so she had I think she got my name from the lady, right? And then had to put, just to say, now why were you with that person? So it really is, it was a kind of a safety check, right? For that person, because otherwise it was just a stranger going into the house.
So
So
Mark,
it's
can you
really
tell us what
important.
the actual volunteer does? If you volunteer for Meals on Wheels, what's the typical day?
Typical day is probably about an hour, hour and a half of a time commitment. We have 5 routes on the island broken down into sections and areas. And basically, it depends on the volunteer's schedule. Some of our volunteers are taking breaks from work, or their offices have allowed them to take breaks to come out and do Meals on Wheels. A lot of our volunteers like to pick one person a week to spend extra time with. There's usually 8 to 10 on each route, so you kind of pick and choose. Some people are a little more chatty, others are not. Some of these folks, the Meals on Wheels driver might be the only person they see that day, depending on what their situation is.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's nutrition as well as fighting isolationism. You know, it's a combination of things.
So do the same volunteers tend to see the same people?
Usually we do. It kind of builds a little bit of rapport between the folks. They also get to know them a little bit better, so they can kind of tell if something's out of sort or something isn't exactly right. It just kind of helps tighten things up a little bit.
And I bet a lot of times they're just, if that person really is having some problems or they're sick or whatever, it's a person that can make the phone call and kind of get something.
Exactly. Notify our office about what's going on, and we use our route sheets as a communication card. So if there's anything, observations that the volunteer would like to share, they're given that opportunity, because they're our eyes. They're the people who are laying eyes on our consumer that day.
Now, I gotta ask, who makes the food?
We are very
Right,
fortunate to
right,
have.
yeah,
Yep,
always
we're very
ask,
fortunate
always
to have a
wonder.
contract with Kitty Murtaugh's restaurant. They are
Yeah.
completing their 8th year with us right now. They follow a state dietitian's menu, keeping in mind sodium, calories, fat, things like that. And they have a little bit of a challenge with some of the items that they're required to use, but they do an excellent stand-up job. Our consumers are extremely pleased, and that helps with, if you're going to bring something that somebody really doesn't care for, they're probably not going to eat it. So the fact that it's a well-balanced, nutritious, tasty meal, it's a sell,
And
win-win.
it's coming from a local restaurant.
Exactly.
It isn't this kind of pre-packed, it isn't coming from like China.
No, and the fact it's a restaurant as opposed to an institutional kitchen, we see a lot more fresh vegetables.
color and
the things
texture.
are made a little bit closer to our delivery times. They're not held in refrigerators or such, except for times that they're supposed to be. But
And you said they sometimes have trouble with the things that they need to use. What is
well, our program is state and federally funded, and we are required to use what are known as commodity products. So like number 10 cans of fruit or certain types of fish sticks or something of the sort.
see.
There has to be a certain percentage of each meal that comes from government commodity products. So sometimes those are a little hard to dress up, but they really do a good job at Kitty's.
But I suppose that's the challenge, though. If you got a restaurant, it was like that. Who was that great chef that we had on?
Greg Margolis
Who
from
was-
the corner table.
Who was really talking about, and once again, dealing with seniors and helping seniors figure out how to, in that case, kind of dress up stuff in their own homes, even if you've got kind of limited, things or ways to do it and stuff. But if you've got a pro in the kitchen, they can probably do all that
Yep.
stuff.
Now, Mark, tell us about the Congregate Lunch. How many people go to that? Who is it open for?
Congregate Lunch is open for seniors over 60. That's more directed for people who are mobile, who can come out and socialize. So it's the same exact food that you would get home delivered, but it's served down at the Saltmarsh Senior Center. Nice tables, glass plates, beautiful view.
Service, people wait on you.
They do, to a degree. We do have volunteers who will help set stuff up, serve, clear, and take care of what needs to be done.
Yeah, I've been as a guest a couple of times, and it's really lovely.
It's a social situation. It's a great room. We're very fortunate to be associated with the Saltmarsh, and a lot of their programs help feed into our attendance. People will come to have lunch and then stay for lectures or games or entertainment. So it's a good situation.
And can you talk about what that schedule is?
Congregate
When does it
Lunch is
typically
held Monday
start?
through Friday. It
Yeah.
starts at noon and
Yeah.
roughly runs till about 1.
And I think, was it you that invited me? Because I remember going to one, and I remember they asked for like a donation, but if you can't pay it. you
Correct.
have to
Both
pay.
of our programs are partially funded by donations by the consumers. They are given the opportunity to make a $3 per meal donation if they can. If they're not able to, they're not denied services.
And it's $3 a meal?
Correct.
For
Yep.
lunch.
For a hot meal served to you,
That's not bad.
with a water view. No, it's a bargain.
That's not bad. And you get to be chatty too, right?
You do,
Yeah.
you know.
Right?
You get to move around. We served 282 meals to 49 consumers in March down at the senior center, and 754 home delivered to 45 different clients.
Wow,
That's like a ton.
that's a lot.
It's up there. For our fiscal year from July 1st to the end of February, we delivered 5,408 and served 2143 down at Saltmarsh. So there is a need. There is a use for the program.
So I'm just curious, because now you've been in there for quite a few years. Have those numbers changed a lot over the time that you've been there? Because we always hear that there's an increasing senior.
You do,
The demographics seem to indicate an increasing senior population.
Our numbers are a little bit down, and that's due to what you want to call a senior. Many people in their 60s, pardon me, are still working. I don't think I have anybody at the Congregate Lunch that's younger than 70. It just seems to be one of those changes. We also have different areas for seniors now, like you mentioned, Sherburne Commons. Those folks have got a dining room, they've got their meals included, so they really wouldn't be needing our meal so much. They could benefit from the socialization, but it's a little bit of a different spin.
But as you say, it's always a matter of trying to bring new people in. Because I think one of the purposes of this show is for folks who are at home and may be intimidated by it or whatever, right? So that now that they see.
Well, it's
you
not
look
for
like a
me.
friendly
It's
face,
not for me, and that's
right.
the big thing. I'm not old enough to go to the
Oh,
senior
yeah,
center.
those people are too old. That's
So
right.
you chip away at those sort of misconceptions by doing a good job.
So are there, if you don't drive, is there a way for you to get there?
Oh, of course. Yep, you can register with Our Island Ride, the senior bus, 325-7516. That requires an application signed off by your doctor. But you give Paula and Cindy a call, and they'll get you lined up for that.
And if people, you were talking about volunteers, if people want to volunteer, how do they find you?
They would go through our office, Elder Services of Cape Cod and the Islands. It's located in the Landmark House at 144 Orange Street. Our number is 508-228-4647, and we can get you out an application. Corey background check is required, so everybody's on the up and up, and a brief training, and then out you go.
So we're hoping people will do this, right? We hope you think about doing this. If you haven't been, you have to go. Just go for one, go for a one meal, or have your meals delivered, of course, right? If you like just somebody to stop over. Oh, I didn't even ask. When during the day do people usually bring the meals?
Home delivered meals are picked up at Kitty's at 10, so between 10 and 12. And then the lunch program starts, we serve at noon till 1, so people gather around 11:30 or so, pick their seats, get comfortable.
So this is a great program. You can't beat that price. You ought to try it. We're going to take a short break, and then Allison's going to introduce us to another wonderful guest. Once again, you've probably already met this woman, but another wonderful guest. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
This is just great. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to let you know who next month's guest is going to be. Taylor Hilts, who is the activities director at Our Island Home, will be joining us next time.
Next month?
Next month.
And if you haven't seen Taylor, she's terrific. Just a barrel of energy, the kind of person you'd love to work for as a volunteer at Our Island Home. So you really want to see her.
Yes.
So
We can't wait.
We'll look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, welcome back. And we're here now with our second guest, and Allison's going to introduce her. So Allison, who do we have next?
Thank you, Arthur. We have Erika Mooney here today for the second half from the town of Nantucket's town building.
Yes.
Just
Here
from-
to talk about committees.
Yes.
And once again, now I'm an outlander. So how did you end up here? Are you?
I am actually a native Nantucketer. No,
No.
I was born and raised on Nantucket. I grew up in Sconset, went off to college, and then came back, and I have been in the position with the town for about 10 years now. I did work for a nonprofit before that. And it's been great. And one of my big things that I do every year is just the annual committee appointment process with the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board, I should say now.
By the way, now I'm just going to throw in one other thing that she mentioned during the break, that she's a Meals on Wheels volunteer.
Yeah.
Who
I
knew?
am.
That's terrific. Oh, but so
It's a-
tell how you did that. How you did that.
I started volunteering with Meals on Wheels through their Mayors for Meals program quite a few years ago, and I just filled in one time. And that's an annual program that they do once a year to try to get community members involved, specifically like select board members or town managers or people like that. So I got to volunteer one time, and I was really nervous, and I didn't know what to expect, and I've been volunteering there ever since. And
Ever since.
I wish I could do it more often, but I try to do it as much as I can.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought
Well,
that was
so
a great,
even if
that's a
you
great
can't
story.
volunteer on a permanent basis, you can be a fill-in, so.
Totally. They send me a list of, hey, we've got these dates that we don't have anybody for. Can you fill in for any of them? And I go through my calendar, and my work has been really fabulous in terms of allowing me time to go out and do this for our community.
That's
That's
great.
great.
Yeah. Really
So
lovely.
I didn't mean to interrupt. So you're talking about volunteers more in general now. So it's a kind of a natural.
Yeah.
Correct. Now we need volunteers for several committees that are important parts of running our town government, so.
Absolutely. So every April, we start our committee renewal process. We have a myriad of committees, boards, and commissions that really rely on volunteer resources. We need people involved in our community in so many different ways. There's some that are always, they never have a problem getting filled. Finance Committee, Concom, Airport Commission. You know, those are things that people, it's just what they gravitate towards. Unfortunately, one of the things that really doesn't get a lot of volunteers are the Human Services Committees. And we actually have one committee now that is basically defunct because it doesn't have enough membership to even constitute a quorum. So
What is that committee?
it's the Council for Human Services.
And what does the committee do?
They're basically in charge of keeping an eye on all the human services and making sure that there's outlets for people. And the CRC, which is the Contract Review Committee, is actually
Yeah.
a subcommittee of that group that does the grant funding for human services every year. And actually the CRC is down members because two of the members that sit on that board are supposed to be Council for Human Services members, and we don't have any members
And you don't
there.
have any members. But I think so. I think a piece of that is many people don't think about human services really being kind of a part of town government. I mean, you know that like conservation is town government, right? And obviously the airport and these other things. It's just like when I first came here, I was amazed that you had a human services director. There are many communities that position doesn't exist, you know.
And
I
her position is very far-reaching because not only is she in charge of, she oversees Our Island Home and the Salt Marsh Center with the Council on Aging, but she's also in charge of the Veteran Services Officer, and so her position's pretty broad.
But the nice thing about having a human services committee is that I think even for people who are kind of interested, who need something, it isn't like you have to figure out which silo. You know, there's like in many communities, because there isn't a central place, you need to kind of be checking right door to door and saying, well, is you the right person? And nobody kind of connects with each other. So it's like a really important job.
So what does it entail being on a committee, whether it's?
So it depends. There's some committees, like the Finance Committee per se, that really is only active during the budget and town meeting season. So during the rest of the year, they're kind of, I don't want to say dormant, but they don't really meet. And then there's others that might meet once a month. There's others that might meet twice a month. Council on Aging,
We do once a month?
once a month.
The first Wednesday?
So it just depends on its mission and what they need to accomplish. So, the Finance Committee, when we're really in budget season, it's 3 times a week sometimes.
Right, that's a lot.
So it's
That's
a
a
big
lot.
commitment for some of these. And some, the terms vary also. Sometimes it might be a 1-year term where you're just filling a vacancy, which are actually great terms to get your feet wet with.
See if you like it.
To see if you like
Yeah.
it, see if it's a good fit for you. The average is 3-year terms. And then there's some committees like ZBA, that's the Zoning Board of Appeals, that's a 5-year seat, and then they have alternates for 3-year seats. So it just depends on what you can commit, because obviously being on a committee is wonderful, but you really have to be realistic about the time commitment.
Now, from your perspective on the Council on Aging, do you have a full roster, or are you looking for members for the Council on Aging?
We're looking for members on the Council on Aging. We need to have 5 for a quorum, and sometimes that's a struggle with how people travel and go back
Sure.
and forth. But
And you have a vacancy right now.
yes, yep, we have 1 vacancy. So I'm trying to drum up interest in the community. You don't have to be, you have to be of voting age, correct? Or is there an age?
No,
That's a
I
great
don't. I don't even
question.
think that there is actually to be on these committees. There's no age requirement whatsoever. I mean, I think for some that are finance based, they want you to have background in finance, but I think sometimes they just want somebody who is really willing and able to put some time and effort into
And is
it.
interested, of course, in the subject matter. so,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And there's some committees that you don't even know about. They the scholarship committee, for instance, they only meet once or twice a year, and they give out scholarships to town of Nantucket High School graduates, and also people, not just freshmen, people going to their freshman year, but people that are maybe even going back to school. But they're very limited in what they do.
So they don't have to raise any money.
Well, actually,
Their job is to give money away. That's a good
It
job.
is, and every year with the tax bills, there's
Yeah.
a little slip of paper that goes out, and it's a little solicitation saying if you'd like to give money to the Town of
Oh.
Nantucket Scholarship
Yeah.
Fund, write a check to this. Because it's a town committee, though, you can't fundraise. We've had instances
That's even
like
better.
that.
You're on a committee where they can't
Can't
ask you to
fundraise, yeah.
fundraise?
Well, and Allison is on a committee, the Friends of Our Island Home, and they can fundraise, but Our Island Home cannot. So that's kind of like a separate fundraising
That's
arm.
why the
And-
Friends of Our Island Home started. That's
Yes.
why the Nantucket Center for Elder Affairs started, so they can raise
Fundraise
money
for-
for the Salt Marsh Senior Center because it's town-owned.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So it's tough. The scholarship committee has been very fortunate for the last few years to be the beneficiary from the Nantucket Triathlon. And let's just keep our fingers crossed that that continues. So that's been able to allow them to give more scholarships out for larger amounts.
That's pretty terrific.
Yeah.
That's pretty terrific.
And so they will be able to run a program that shows what committees need filling while we're talking. But if you can share some of the ones that you think are most important, are there
Sure.
target?
Well, I mean, I think they're all important, but I can go through a list real quick and just give you an idea of some of the committees that will have openings. The Agricultural Commission, the Airport Commission.
And the Agricultural Commission does, for people who are listening going, the agricultural,
Well,
we-
information
do we
on
grow-
all the
do
boards
we
and
grow
committees
things?
is
Yeah.
actually available on the Town of
okay.
Nantucket's website on the boards and commissions
That's probably
page.
more thorough,
And that
yeah.
is actually the best place to check for all of this. And you
Yeah.
can, that way you can also check who the current members are,
Yeah.
what kind of work they're doing. You can look at their agendas and minutes and kind of see what they're up to. So I'm going to actually refer those types of questions to our website because it is very full with information.
That's great.
We've got the Board of Health. We have a new committee that the board is in the process of forming called the Cannabis Advisory Committee.
That reports to the Board of Health or is reports to the selectmen?
To be determined.
I see.
It's in the establishment phase, and they're still working out some details in terms of the mission and the charge. Capital Program Committee, they review all the capital projects for the town of Nantucket.
So
And
if something happened with the island home, these are the folks that would be looking at this?
yes, if there was a proposal, a spending proposal, they would look at that and make a recommendation. During budget season and town meeting, a lot of the capital projects go both through the capital projects committee as well as the finance committee. So it's a good board. Definitely, you need some financial background for that is helpful. We have the cemetery commission, and another new one, the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee. Coastal resiliency has been a big thing now with all the erosion coming on around Nantucket. So this is just something to look more island-wide. We have been so focused on certain areas like Sconset, the SBPF project has been such a hot button topic.
The SBPF project.
Sconset Beach Preservation Fund.
Thank you.
So, but this, I think, is meant to be a more comprehensive island-wide look at some of our issues there.
And is it anticipated that's going to be an ongoing thing, or are they trying to do a report in a kind of a?
To be determined. That's
Oh,
another
so it's
new
all
one
open. I
that's,
see.
yep. We've got the Conservation Commission, the Contract Review Committee, which is part of the Human Services Committee, subcommittee that I had talked about before, that gives grants out to the various groups around Nantucket, like the hospital or ASAP. So anything that's human services related, that to be able to give them some money, and that comes through town meeting funding. We have the Council for Human Services, which I mentioned earlier. They have basically 2 members, and that's it. And it's supposed to be a 7-member board. So,
How often does that committee meet, or is that?
you know,
It's
I
up
don't.
to them?
It's up to them. I want to say maybe once a month, but they haven't been able to meet for so long. I'm not even sure. They'd probably have to almost have a new organizational meeting and figure out a meeting schedule for that.
Yeah, if they've got 2 members, that's not a meeting, that's a conversation. That's like,
They shouldn't even be trying to have a conversation at that point, except to say, who can we get in? What kind of new blood can we get in? Council on Aging, Cultural Council, which is actually another. It's a smaller committee that a lot of people I don't think know about, but they do get grants from the state. The town gets grant money, and then the Cultural Council gives that money out to different areas. So Theater Workshop might get something. A Dreamland production might get some money. So anything culturally related for that.
sounds like the lottery money, like the Mass Cultural Council
Yeah,
gives that
unfortunately,
money.
it's really not much. I want to say it's usually between 4,000 and 5,000, so they don't get a lot. But
Right.
whatever, I definitely know that the grant recipients appreciate all the money that they get through this program. Finance Committee, HDC Associate. So HDC is our Historic District Commission, and the main members of that are elected, but the associates are appointed by the board. And I'll be quick. Affordable Housing Trust, the Nantucket Historical Commission. We have another new commission that's getting formed. It's called the Parking Benefit District Commission, and that's all about downtown parking and the possibility of having paid parking
Paid
downtown.
parking. Yeah.
Planning Board Alternate, Real Estate Assessment Committee, Roads and Right-of-Way, Scholarship Committee, Steamship Authority Port Council, Town Government Study Committee, that's a vacancy. We have a Tree Advisory Committee and the Zoning Board of Appeals.
That's
So a lot
unbelievable.
of committees,
And a lot of vacancies.
yes.
That's at least 30 committees. I bet you got 50 to 70 vacancies.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So, and some of them are just annual turnover.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
annual
yeah.
renewals, and a lot of the incumbents will put in that they would like to serve again and be reappointed. But then there's a lot that, the turnover can be high sometimes.
So this was a terrific summary, right? And because you've got a small population, everybody needs to participate,
Yeah.
right? So the moral of this story, if you want Nantucket to continue to be terrific, you got to volunteer, right? You just got to
Totally.
volunteer. So, and you could be part of that conversation with the Human Services Committee. I think that would
Absolutely.
just be a lot of fun. This was really great. This
Thank
is
you.
really great. Hopefully this will really generate some. And is there a number that they should call?
So the best, they can call the town administration office at 508-228-7255.
and ask for you.
They can ask for me, Erika Mooney. But I would say the best resource is our website, www.nantucket-ma.gov. If they find the boards and committees page, it's got information on all the different boards and commissions. It's got information on who are the current members, what is open right now, the committee timeline. It's got conflict of interest, open meeting law,
Another
all
thing
that
that's
stuff.
great is you can also get the agendas for those meetings emailed to you.
You
so
can,
if you
yep.
want to find out what's going on, you can.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the pay isn't great, It's kind of like the Meals on Wheels stuff. But if you've got some time, and there's definitely a committee there
Yes.
that's close to one of your interests, because there are just so many committees. If you're interested in anything, there's a committee, right? So you should really think about volunteering. This is a great idea. This is another brainchild of Allison's. So thank you very, very much.
Thanks
it
for
was really
having
great
me.
to meet you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Frank and Mary here on Nantucket. Thank you very much.